All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming along to the March 2026 clinical case discussion for WINC. So I think you've all been here before, but Jenna, this might be your first one. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it is.
yeah, amazing. So welcome. It's pretty
Yeah.
casual. We chat about cases, questions. If you have a question that you're just like curious about, this is a good opportunity to ask. And otherwise, just listen along in case there's anything else interesting. And please contribute. Like, even though I'm hosting this thing, you guys are all experts just as much as I am in your own fields. And so you often have really cool things to suggest to each other. So I'm also just going to be listening for some of it. But also, I can add some information if we kind of get a little stuck for cases or specific things to chat about. I do still have some like researchy stuff I can share from the Singapore conference, which Kate was at as well, and just some of my like favorite take home messages. But that's always kind of in my back pocket in case. All right. I'll also acknowledge for those who are in Australia and New Zealand, you might do this as well, Kate, that we acknowledge that the traditional owners of the land that we meet upon are the Aboriginal Australians, for me, that I'm coming to you from. I'll also acknowledge that you're all coming from lands that were traditionally owned by other people and that we pay our respects to those people. So for me here in Adelaide, it is the Kaurna people. And Deb, what I forget what it is over in Victoria.
Well, my area is the Tongarang people.
Very nice. Cool. All right. So, now, Kate, you had messaged through with a question about assessing for depression and anxiety along with our sleep, like intake assessments, I'm assuming, or along the way. So that's definitely on the list. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to add it specifically today?
I wouldn't mind adding something with a challenge. I'm working with an adult at the minute that's obviously got some personality issues. And she's taught herself to get up. When she wakes up, she gets up to eat food. So it's quite a challenge. I'd like to discuss some strategies I've used and maybe some other people have got some input. That would be great.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Thank you. All right, well, that will end up on the list too. And then I'm just thinking, maybe even I have a question for you guys, just as a general question too, um, if we need it. So, Kate, maybe I'll start with your question. So, would there be a specific example or specific situation that you're thinking of when you're asking about assessing for depression and
Yeah,
anxiety?
I've had a couple of trickier like initial presentations recently, and they have been referrals from like a lifestyle medicine doctor, and they've had a whole lot of other things going on. The one that I was thinking about in particular, I have like a free sort of discovery call for half an hour. So when I had that session with her, just sort of saying like, what's going on for you triggered tearfulness, and throughout the whole session, she was really, really tearful and struggling with low mood and anxiety to the point that it was quite hard to even have the conversation or talk about anything educational, to give her a few little, pointers to go away with. And she also had a history of breast cancer, so she couldn't take HRT. She's sort of late 50s and just sort of early, like post-menopause, sort of 2 months post her last period. And it was just quite a complex like situation to address because I understand that the relationship with sleep and mental health is very bidirectional, but it seemed like her sort of mood and anxiety was so high that giving the normal level of depth of education that I feel is needed with CBTI would have been difficult. And so I just felt a little bit conflicted where I know that the research is pointing to, like helping sleep can be really like low-hanging fruit and you do that first and then that can help. But I just felt like the picture of not being able to have HRT and just really struggling with ruminative thoughts and some difficulties happening with her kids and just her life were sort of a blocker to potentially starting CBTI. And so I did give her a couple of referral names for like a psychologist in our community and a mental health provider, and I sent a letter back to the person that referred, the doctor that referred, to just let her know my perspective on things and say that I think CBTI was still, part of the foundations for her. But I just felt that maybe she wasn't in a state to sort of take on board some of that stuff, not only the information, but it's hard to do initially. So yeah, I guess that's a summary of where I'm at with that person.
Yeah, that sounds so challenging. This poor woman, it might have been that coming to talk to someone opened the floodgates a bit in the sounds of
Yeah,
things, but very hard to try and figure out where to go, especially if you've only just met her for the first time.
yeah.
Yeah, really tricky. I guess like I know that you're asking about like assessing for mental health. In there, I think was also maybe kind of a question about like, do we start with sleep support or do we start with other psychological support? Like you're absolutely right. Like we often talk about sleep being a low-hanging fruit. Like we can give you some sleep restriction or we can give you some strategies and then it gives you some early wins, which could then help you engage better in mental health treatment. But clearly she was not even in a state to take on board the sleep information either. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, she was just, yeah, so tearful that it was just hard to kind of even communicate properly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really tricky. Has anyone else had clients or people they've helped in similar kind of states?
I think that you have to kind of, well, how I consider it is if they're seeing a psychologist, and often they are, that's going to be a lot longer journey to get a result in, as far as I can tell, not being a psychologist. But sleep can be turned around so quickly that I often think it's just worthwhile getting started with it and letting that run side by side with psychological support.
Mm.
Yeah, it could easily go that way for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How about you, Arena and Jenna? Have you come across anything like that before?
Yeah, work with adults. Sorry.
No, no, that's right. I'm like Little Dreams Consulting. I don't think you're working with adults. But you may even
We
have
do kind
parents
of
like that.
screen the mummy. Well, don't screen, but there's a couple of questions that we ask in our questionnaire for the mummies that we work with. But generally, by the point they're coming to us, we're like the last hope for them. So they're already engaging with mental health
Mm,
agencies. So we're kind of lucky in that way that we often, we might be working with mummies, well, mostly mummies to be honest, who, have some mental health difficulties. But by the time they've come to us, they've already, like, they always go to that first before they try and sort out the sleep rather than the other way around. But I
mm.
probably can't help too much, I'm sorry, with the adult questions.
No, no, but that's interesting though, and you might have some good questions that you ask as part of that screening as well. That could be helpful. Not that
Yeah,
we're,
it's tricky, I think,
yeah.
with like GDPR as well, because we've got to be quite careful with like the level of, I mean, to be perfectly honest, we ask a question which is like, is there anything else that you think that we should know? And we often get paragraphs of like what is wrong with the parents. So,
Mm,
or, like I said, mostly the mums, so that tends to be, and we do ask if there's like a history, just so we're conscious that what we don't want, because if the baby is, or the child is crying or, having a shout, we don't want that to be in any way triggering. It might be too, not quite the right word, but we need to be mindful that the parents need support from elsewhere before we then sort of introduce this new stressor into the situation.
mm. Yeah, that makes sense, absolutely. And then being the driving force, it's like they can only help as much as they feel
Yeah,
supported. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Karina, how about you?
I do work with clients. Basically, I work only, sorry, with adults. Basically, I work only with adults. And I do not take clients that are not in a good mental state, or at least a mental state that would prevent me from doing any intervention. But what I've noticed in other situations is that a group setting helps so much with people with insomnia. So I had a client, she tried to work with me for a few sessions, and I was asking her for intake forms and just pushing her to do the intake form. She was like, "You're asking too much. It's too much for me now. I don't want to work with you anymore." So she joined a program, a group program, where she had like a backseat and she was observing a lot of the people that were in the program and hearing the stories, because basically she thought it's just her. Her problem is unique. And I've heard so many people with insomnia in this situation, and hearing others people's stories and seeing the success cases help her at least to listen and to open up to the practices. So she basically told me, if you're bringing mindfulness, I'm done. So she told me that she had like friends in yoga, and that like she just tell her to relax and to do meditation, and she was in a state that she couldn't hear about this kind of words. I recently actually wrote a post about that, the mindfulness word, it's so overused that it's misinterpreted. So once she got into that group and she was opening to hearing the acceptance part, and then she was willing to try things. But like at that point where she reached me, she wasn't even open to any suggestions that I was making. So she wanted help, but she didn't want help.
Yeah,
I don't know if that helps, Kate, but
yeah, no, I think it does. And what you were saying about being overwhelmed by the intake forms, like I think that that person would be the same. Like she was not in a state that she would have even had the capacity to do that process. So yeah, that is a good point.
and I did had another client that she wasn't in that state. So, but she was in a high state of hypervigilance. Her entire life was very lived in like an abusive family and stuff like that. So I didn't start with sleep restriction or any CBTI things. We started more with ACT and with, so I like to use ACT in my practice, or ACT-based tools, because I'm not a therapist. So I got her into a state where she was like, the hypervigilance was lower and she was able to sleep, but her sleep was all over the place, and she was like still very tired. But then we could start applying a sleep window time restriction, but not right away. So you can maybe work with, if she's not working with a therapist, maybe you can work with some thinking, some mindfulness, but like acceptance diffusions, like cognitive diffusion, some tools from acceptance and commitment therapy. I don't know if
Yeah,
that helps.
I do incorporate those tools as well. Yeah, I find them really useful.
Yeah.
That's a really good point
Basically
as well.
basically bring her in a state where she's open and capable of implementing the tools from CBTI.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that, we talk about the lid flip model. Have you guys heard of that from Dan Siegel? So for those who haven't and those watching the recording, I'll do it here the way that I do for clients. So let's say that this is the brain, and we have the frontal lobes kind of at the front here, and we have the brain stem here. And on the inside of our brain, here is I think it's meant to be the thumb. This is the amygdala. So the amygdala is our alarm system. It's telling us that there's something wrong, that we need to protect ourselves. It's our fight or flight response. And that kind of usually sits tucked away. And the frontal lobes here is like your wise brain, like your reasoning center. You can think rationally. And when we're really upset, this lid kind of flips, and we no longer have the rational thinking. We've only got this extreme feeling. And for some of our clients, they come into a session kind of like this. Some of them, I think maybe yours, Kate, might have been about this, or at least kind of close. And preferably they're here when we're teaching them the psychoed, right? And so, and you identified this perfectly. It's like she just couldn't access it. Like she was in a point that she was not taking in the information. Like she was so tearful that it just clearly didn't feel at the right time. And so in order to help them understand the sleep strategies, like I do agree with what you said, Deb, often you can start sleep strategies alongside the psychological therapy. But for them to understand what to do and why they're doing it, they kind of do need to be at least a little bit here, which is where we engage probably what I'd call like distress tolerance, like emotion regulation stuff, which does come from ACT. I think you're probably all familiar with it, but if you look further into stuff that Russ Harris has done, he's just got some really cool videos online as well. His book, The Happiness Trap, is quite popular. And I've had clients who come to me and say, yeah, no, I've already read that. And some of those things are accessible for us if we want to try and stay on like the sleep support side, but we're like, until we can get there, these are some things you should try. It would be like grounding strategies, regulating the system, like kind of that ACT stuff as well that Russ Harris goes through. And then saying, okay, like when we're at a state that we can face doing some strategies, that's where we might, have a chat. But for now, it's going to be about relaxing your body, maybe at that point doing more of that sleep hygiene kind of stuff as well, which I know most of them are already thought of. But like you said, Arena, like parking the sleep restriction because they probably just can't face it right now. And like, what else can we do at the beginning that might be helping them to calm the system? And maybe that is referring elsewhere. Like, I think that's probably appropriate if someone's clearly having quite a time. And then saying like, let me know when you're starting to feel up to it, and then we'll get on to the sleep. There's going to be so many other resources out there as well that you can add at that point. But I do find like usually we can start with sleep strategies, but it is the odd client that we've had, like with Michael as well, where he'll say, I just can't yet. We got to do this like anxiety work first. So it's uncommon and it's tricky when it happens because you're like, I know exactly how to help you, but I just don't think that you're ready right now. There's too much other stuff going on. I'll also, for some clients, when they're really not ready, let's say they're kind of like, here-ish, like I've gotten them from here to here. They're still not ready to face like a sleep restriction. I'll couch it as like bedtime fading. And I'll say, we're going to do like just a gentle approach to start with. Because, some of them, when they're really anxious, you talk about sleep restriction and they're like, oh my God, I can't possibly. And a lot of the work we do is to like address that kind of breakout. But sometimes I do engage in a more gentle approach. Like, let's do 15 minutes later bedtime for a couple of nights, and then another night, and then another. And so it's a bit more gradual and a little bit more gentle when they need that extra, soft care. Oh, thanks, Jenna. No worries. You are like, it's nearly 11 where you are, so
It is, yeah. I'm gonna have to ironically get off to bed, but thank you all so much. Good to see you. Have a lovely rest of your meeting and happy Friday.
Yes. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Just want to mention that the link I share in the chat, like a few days ago, I found it because I was looking for progressive muscle mindfulness. And I thought that it has some cool tools, clinical tools, and just wanted to share. I don't know if you'll find anything that helps, but I don't know if you've ever used progressive muscle mindfulness. It's different than the progressive muscle relaxation, as it focuses on not necessarily to relax. That the purpose is not to relax, but to observe and to be aware of the body. And the whole idea is to train the body to be more aware of what's happening.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's really handy.
Thank you.
Yeah, that looks like lots of handy little resources there. Well, what I'll do is copy it into the comments once I post the video, so people watching can have it as well. Thanks. We actually started a while ago, which I have failed to keep up with regularly, like a document with resources. I think at least a couple of you might have even been in that call where we started that. So I'll add this in there as well. Yeah.
Where do we find that?
Okay, so on our Facebook page, we go into Wink Sleep Member. And then, excuse me while I just look it up, because I'm like, where is it? In the tabs, there's like the discussion, members, events, and then there's a section called files. And in here, maybe it's a little bit different. There are actually a bunch of resources in here. Michael's put in papers a bunch of times. I put in the DBAS at one point. There's a document called Relaxation Ideas, and that was the one that a few of us kind of contributed to. So this might go into that, actually. I reckon that would be handy. Yeah. But I don't know how easy it is for people to edit. I don't know that Facebook like allows for that kind of thing, but I can always edit and then re-upload it. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Do you have any other lingering questions? Are you like, thanks, but we didn't still get to the heart of what I'm actually asking?
No, I think that was helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
And good work supporting this person who's clearly having a rough time.
Yeah, it's hard, especially when it's can't have HRT as well. I think just the combination of all of that stuff going on is really tricky.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I was thinking about that in the back of my mind as you mentioned it, and it's not an area that I feel like I'm an expert in at all. But menopause and sleep has been increasingly on the rise in research, and I've seen it increasingly in clinic as well. Like it's really tricky, and yeah, I hope that she can get some further support, maybe with probably not her GP, but with like an endocrinologist or something, because that surely must be contributing to a lot of these fluctuations.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, Deb, you wanted to talk about your case. So did you want to lead there?
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. Yeah, I'm seeing a 27-year-old single lady that has to drive a considerable distance in the car a few times a week to get to her job. Otherwise, she works from home. She's had a poor association with her bed and sleep, so consequently was finding that she was sleeping on the couch. She decided at some point that she should get up and eat when she wakes up. So her main insomnia problem wasn't so much falling asleep, albeit that was on the couch, and then she'd go to bed sometime later, but waking up during the night and not being able to get back to sleep. So when I came along, we first of all started off with just some better strategies to help her get some education, I suppose, and get rid of some of those myths that she was thinking were right when in fact they weren't. Then I started some sleep restriction with the idea that as she built up her sleep pressure, she would then wake up less, and therefore that desire to go and eat would stop happening. It wasn't entirely successful in the respect that I couldn't seem to break this habit with her getting up. So over the next few meetings with her, we worked on different strategies to stop her getting up. So I went from, instead of her going out to the fridge to get food, could she just bring a snack beside the bed? So at least she was staying in bed. She had a hard time dealing with that, having food in the bedroom. So there were lots of issues to work through. Then we went to bringing in snacks that she didn't particularly like. So she kind of would eat the snack, but then, okay, let's change it to snacks that you don't really like. That kind of didn't work that well either. She's very non-compliant at times, where she'll go out and stay out till 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning. So doing the sleep restriction was really difficult. So I moved that to kind of bedtime restriction type of thing, so it wasn't so severe, because she would tell me that she was just too tired to go to bed later. She couldn't do it. And I was concerned with her driving on those days where she had to drive. Where are we sitting at the moment? So at the moment, I've got her waking up consistently at the same time, because her sleep diary, she's just kind of all over the shop. And in relation to the food, she's had 3 days in the past week where she actually hasn't had any food. So I'm considering that a win. But the going to bed is still, it's so dysregulated for her. It's, when she gets too tired, she goes early. So it's just kind of maintaining, I guess, some discipline around what we're trying to achieve is really difficult. I feel like, well, actually, she said that on those 3 days where she didn't eat, she was away, and she had told me she was going away camping. And she said the reason why she didn't eat was because there was no food to eat at night.
Mm.
So I'm not sure whether actually I've solved the problem, but I did try to say to her, well, that just goes to show that you can do it. You don't actually have to get up and eat and go searching or go and eat somebody else's food or whatever that might lead you to do. You actually stayed in bed and went back to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just wondering now that she's back home, I've actually given her a couple of weeks now to try and really get back to doing some sleep restriction, or so that she can try and maintain the same bedtime, because as soon as she's tired, she goes to bed early, which is not helping her build sleep pressure. And then she has these whopping late nights where she's talking to boys or whatever she's doing. And then she's like, well, you don't expect me to change my lifestyle. Well, I can't treat you if you don't.
No, and it's not up to you. Like, she's come to you for help. If she's not ready to make changes, then maybe she needs to wait until she is. Like, that's a lot of pressure on you if she's not actually coming to the party.
I actually did sent a letter to her for her to give to her employees, because she was having anxiety on Sunday night, knowing that that was the start of the week and she had to drive, and she always feels tired. So we did negotiate for her to have a few Mondays off so she could work from home. She did have a lot of anxiety asking them for that, because she'd already asked them for an extra day home before I came along, but they were fine with that.
Yeah, given the distance, that is tricky. And I like that you're considering her safety driving as well. Gosh, all right, tricky one. Many things I could say. Kate and Irina, did you have anything you wanted to add?
You go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just thinking, and I'm assuming that you've probably done this already, and that it sounds like it's a really impulse personality issue, the eating. But I just wonder when, like you said, she said, do you expect me to change my lifestyle? If there was some, and you might have already done this, as I said, but if there was some specific education around circadian rhythms and the why behind not eating, it's not that you're saying, I expect you to change your lifestyle. It's just like these are the core fundamentals of how our body works over 24 hours. And when we give the wrong inputs at the wrong time, then you're sort of working against your system in terms of the right environmental cues at the right time. So therefore, eating is sort of telling your body that that's daytime. Like, we want to separate the things that are what are daytime activities and what are, nighttime activities, and giving her a little bit more understanding of why, rather than her thinking it's like lifestyle and expecting her to change. Because if she, like you said, she's got that great anchor of the consistent morning time, but maybe if she was having some other cues that were supportive of circadian rhythm, that having an odd late night when she's being social is okay, that's just a one-off thing.
Yeah, we have discussed circadian rhythms around that kind of thing. She's well aware that she's taught herself to do this, and she needs to unlearn these behaviors. And also she's well aware that I'm there to help her do that. At the same time, she's kind of thinking like a young person that's got no commitments, no family, nothing to kind of ground you, where you go, you know what, I'm past those days of, being out late. So she's still, having those really late nights. I have to admit, on the weekend that she went camping, I did say to her, could you try and just restrict staying up late, maybe till midnight, rather than doing those later? And she did comply with that. So I think it's kind of a time thing. But yeah, I totally understand what you're saying.
What I was thinking, I don't know if you know the reason of waking up at night and eating. So I was wondering if can it be a biological problem? Is it like a drop, is an insulin problem and a blood sugar problem, or is it a conditioned wakening? Because sometimes it can start as an insulin problem, and the more you do this, the more you condition your brain to wake up, even if the problem went away. So I'm wondering what is behind the eating at night and awakening at night.
That's a good question. I have asked her generally, how is her health? Is there any concerns? And no, there isn't. I just can't recall the reason why she started eating in the first place. I guess it was just a comfort thing, because what she believed was when you wake up with insomnia during the night, you should get up and do something. And the doing something for her was to go and eat something and, and be awake.
That's become a habit.
It's quite kind of a simple explanation, I suppose. I don't think there was any major thing behind the eating. It was just that her sleep was bad, and she'd always believed that when you can't get back to sleep, you should wake up and get up and do something else.
So I'm wondering if the eating is the perpetuating factor, because it becomes a habit that like triggers you to wake up. What I was also thinking is like, why did she reach out to you? I mean, like going back to her motivation and going back to what are your values and why do you want to do this change? So remind her of why she's doing it. And maybe you can present the options as like in the science, like this is what the psychoeducation, and this is what is happening and why is happening. What do you think we should do next? Like have her involved in the solution. So like or you can give her like some options and then let her choose, because she might be ambivalent with this change, and when she's being told to do something, she is choosing to do the opposite, right? So when you're presenting option and allowing her to choose, maybe she would be more compliant.
Yeah, perhaps so. I definitely see in her personality that at times there's not a lot of honesty going on, where she'll say something, during the session, and then she'll say something entirely different or bring in something else. And I'm like, hang on a minute, you just said this. So I'm kind of picking her up on, and I kind of think that's her personality, which is also makes an element of trickiness too, what's going on. Or she'll send me the sleep diary and it'll have something, and then she'll say, like, it'll show a relatively good night, and then she'll say, oh, I woke up 4 times. You didn't reflect that in your sleep diary. So I'm kind of always having to say, hang on a minute, oh my gosh, it's difficult.
It is.
Oh, it's a hard case.
Just bringing me back to some of my cases with teenagers. And then it's hard. It's like it all is up to their motivation. Like, I'm glad you said that, Irina, because the adults that we often work with have tried a bunch of things, have lived with it for a few years, and by the time they get to us, they're like, I am dedicated. I might find it tricky, or I might have some roadblocks, but I'm coming to you because I genuinely want to change, and I will do what you want me to do. For the most part, right? But these young people, like, she knows she needs help, but she's got some blocks there with the motivation, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Do you have you had any information from Michael or elsewhere about motivational interviewing?
Yeah, I did his course on motivational interviewing.
Wonderful. Yeah. I've just brought up the motivational interviewing template just to jog my memory, and it might be something that I can share in the group, because or maybe I'll ask him first if that's okay, but I'm sure it's fine. Those kinds of questions, like Irina's already asked, like, what are the values like that? What are the things you're missing out on in life because of this? What are your personal values that don't actually match this behavior for you? What are the values that do match this behavior? Like, what is it doing for you? Like, what are the pros of doing this, but what are the cons of doing this? And also kind of more future questions, like, what would the future be like in 1, 2, 3 years if this is still happening? What would that be like for you? Would that be okay, or would that not be okay? Like, tell me about it. And then also, what was it like before you were eating in the night and having these late nights? Like, how is that different to now? Like, getting her to kind of reflect on things to elicit potential motivation.
Yeah.
And through that, being very validating of like, of course you were awake and didn't know what to do, and it was boring, or you were anxious, probably as part of it. And so this makes so much sense that you would have gotten into the habit of eating. Like, of course you would. Like, that's nice, and it's reinforcing. And so over time, it's become such a habit, but it's a comforting habit. So like that makes so much sense. But like, is that working for you now? It's probably not, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So
yeah, thank you.
what needs to
That's a
change?
good reminder from both you and Arena, because I'd actually forgotten about the motivational stuff. My computer crashed last month, and I lost the last 2 years of everything.
Oh
So I'm
no.
kind of going through processes of trying to find things, and lost my hard drive because I thought we were having a fire. So I threw the hard drive in the car that had a whole lot of stuff on it, and then I couldn't find it. So it's just been a bit of a process, but I'll definitely go back and revisit that information if I can find it on my computer again. Otherwise, I'll wait till Michael gets back and give him send him out an email.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
One thing that I wanted to add, like I was looking for my ACT book, but I think it was one thing that ACT was saying about the cost of doing things. And when we do something, there is also a reason behind it. And you can present like the benefits on the short term and long term. So it's like, okay, you want to get out in the night with whatever, to spend long nights, and it's like, what's the benefit in the short term and the long term, and what are the costs that you are paying for that? So because in the short term you may feel good, you may interact with people, on the long term, are there any costs, or are there any benefits, and what are the costs? I know exactly where to look in the book, but
No, I might actually, would it be helpful if I shared my screen and you can see what I'm looking at in terms of the questions? Because that might slightly be what you're after, Arena. Share. Okay. Here we are. If you can see that Word document. So if I scroll up, this is...
Not yet. We don't see it yet.
Oh, you don't see it?
Oh, no. I can see it now.
All right, let's see if I can make it bigger. So this is really basic, and this is what I used back in Masters, but this kind of assessment, I think you probably already have a lot of this information. That's like when you're first getting, just like, tell me about it. When did it start? How often does it happen? But these ones are kind of what I was getting at. Like, what do you like about doing this? Whether it's the eating or the staying up at night. What do you dislike about it at the moment? And then this is kind of that discussion about like, what was it like before? What would it be like if it doesn't change? I guess the bit that I didn't talk about was, okay, we've gotten to the point that you said, no, I agree. It'd be good if things were better. And then you talk about, okay, well, what is your desire to change? How much do you want it to change? What is your ability to actually change it? Like, how confident are you that you could? Because sometimes people are like, no, I really, really want to. I just have no faith that I could actually do it. How much do you need to? Like, how important is it for your life right now to change it? And then like other reasons why you might want to change it. This kind of acronym, the DARN, is quite handy. And then I think that could potentially lead you naturally to a point where you think, if you get through this and she's still not really convinced, then me personally, my temptation is to say, like, is this the right time? Because if we're at this point and you're like quite happy with how things are, you know, it's not perfect, but you don't really feel like you're super driven to change, then unfortunately, Deb, like, you're doing way more work on this than she is. And that's always like a nice gauge for us as the support person, as the practitioner, is to say, how much effort am I putting in versus how much they're putting in? And if that imbalance has gone on for a while, then maybe something's not quite a good fit at this point in time.
Yeah.
But hopefully you go through this and she's like, no, okay, I'm renewed motivation. I'll give it a go.
I hope so.
I hope so too, for your sake. Keep us posted though.
I kind of got to the point where I was glad she was just showing up, actually, because, you know, that could have also gone by the wayside.
Absolutely. And not to generalize, but I do find that young people, if they don't want to come, they don't come. They'll just stop replying, you know, they just won't turn up. So she's coming, she's getting something from it. So that's also a good question. It's like, tell me what you're getting out of this. Like, what is working for you well here? And yeah, maybe leverage that a bit as well.
Thank you for that. I'll definitely revisit that.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. We've got 15 minutes left. I actually might ask you guys a question to see if you have any ideas. So this has come up a few times in clinic, and is this interplay between chronic fatigue and sometimes this sense of like burnout as well, and how that obviously disrupts people's sleep. And it's something that like between us, like Michael and Kate, who you might know, she's in the clinic as well, Kate Bartell rather, we have gone back and forth in terms of, okay, the research would say this to support chronic fatigue, and this is what we're seeing in our clients, and it's something that we're just developing knowledge as we go. Have any of you dealt with that before, or have any, what you would usually go to? I'm just very curious about your experience.
No, I haven't.
Not really, no. Are you meaning chronic fatigue, like, or burnout, or?
The reason I say them together is because I know that they can be separate things. But from clients that we've worked with, there does seem to be overlap to the point that strategies that might help one may also help another. Yeah. But if you know more about burnout and chronic fatigue, I'm all ears. If you're not sure, then that's just validating for me because it's been a tricky one.
I don't know data or like research and studies. Is this what you're looking for?
More like your experience working with people who may have these features.
And is it a questions on like what tools are you using or how do you approach it? Like I'm trying to figure out like what's the question behind your question.
Yeah. No, and I think I'm at this stage in Australia for psychology, we have stricter than previous regulations about confidentiality. So that's why at this stage I'm not sharing the actual case. So I'm being a bit obtuse, but I guess my question is in general, like when someone comes to you with this kind of like fatigue that lasts like for a long part of the day, and it might be contributing to the time that they spend in bed, even though they're not sleeping. It might be contributing to a difficulty, getting up in the day to do bright light therapy, to do any of our, strategies that are helping them be active, to help, regularize their circadian rhythm. And it obviously goes hand in hand with some medical treatment as well. But yeah, ways in which we would approach that if, we can give sleep strategies and we can give these suggestions, but sometimes it's that fatigue that's just like endless, and it's a bit of a barrier to getting into the strategies.
It feels like a perpetuating loop where like you're fatigued and you're not sleeping well because of the stress and everything, but at the same time you cannot sleep because you haven't moved enough, you haven't got like light exposure, and it can even be overlap with some depression. And I'm hesitant because this to say anything, because this is the population that I'm targeting as well from a coaching perspective. And it's a version of me as well. I burned out 3 times. I'm coming from the corporate world. Like I was on the HBA stage phase 2 of HBA access dysregulation. So I was just before my cortisol, like my cortisol level were all over the place. So physically I was exhausted, but at the same time I was having issues with staying asleep at night. Like I was waking up almost every night around 2-3 a.m. So my approach, because I'm a coach, I'm also approaches from like an angle of alignment of how do you want to live your life with and what you're doing. Because so my own experience, like I took disability leave for 12 weeks, and once I returned back to work, I got to the same point.
Mm.
So while it helped me with the physical aspect, in a few months, I got back from where I was. And it was basically the lifestyle that I was having and the psychological factors that were coming from work that it's like, yeah, I'm healing my body, but I get back then into the same state, if it makes
That
sense.
makes sense. Yeah.
So when it comes to burnout, I feel like it's not necessarily the exhaustion from the physical part, but from the will of not fighting or doing the things that it doesn't bring you joy. So I don't know. And as a coach, like I'm addressing that perspective before addressing the sleep. And often I feel like I feel like I'm not necessarily a sleep coach, but a life coach, because people come with sleep issues for me. But then we are looking at like, what do you do in your life? What do you do in your day? And then once we get to a point where we can implement sleep restriction or other things, it takes some time.
Yeah.
Have you considered any relationship between diet? Because I think gut health just plays an enormous part in so many aspects of our well-being.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And this particular case I'm thinking of is like very health conscious, but absolutely in general, I could see how that would relate, especially if we then combine it with a circadian perspective as well. Yeah, that's a really good question.
And I also focus on nervous system regulation because I find that those people generally have, stress as well, and trying to help them separate the physical and mental fatigue from sleep, because they often put all of those things onto sleep. So sort of like separating that out. And also looking at like how your day and your nervous system affects your night, and that can affect the nighttime awakenings. And I do find for people like that prioritizing like 20 minutes in the afternoon after lunch, say, to do like a non-sleep deep rest or a meditation or some breath work can really help the energy levels in the second half of the day, but also the nervous system kind of state overall, so that it's not quite as aroused at nighttime. So yeah, I really find that work during the day, and to those types of people that are maybe got burnout and high stress and want to be productive, it can seem like unproductive time to sort of stop everything and take time out, but trying to sort of educate them that it's actually the most productive thing that they could be doing for energy and stress.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. Thank you. Yeah, it's I think probably quite common that the like blurred lines between the exhaustion, the fatigue, and sleep is needing to be separated as well. Yeah.
And I want to add on top of what Kate she was saying, because like I totally agree with that, and I do that as well. Even before the burnout, like they're in the go 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 mode, and there is like no downtime in the day, and there is no time to self-regulate. But basically what I'm trying to introduce is to help them work with mindfulness and being aware of their state and their thoughts and their feeling, but taking breaks between tasks. So not like giving well, I agree with 20 minutes meditation. I'm starting with 30 seconds between tasks, like when you are switching between one task to another, when you're before starting writing an email, after you finished an email, when you have lunch, just take a few breaths and pay attention to the taste of the food. And so bringing them into the present moment and trying to connect them with their body, to ground them. And the reason behind this, what I'm trying to achieve with that, is to give like their nervous system a kind of like sense of safety. So yeah.
Yeah, I really like that, actually. Like me personally, I could benefit from that as well. It's go,
Yeah.
go, go, right?
Or like use any transition, like if they're in a corporate environment and if they're running from one meeting to another, use this kind of transition to reset. And I know that sometimes you don't have the time, you have to run from a meeting room to another but taking the first step would be, okay, let's try to implement that and take them step by step, because they're in a state where they cannot do much. So,
yeah, and then their brains are active when their head hits the pillow as a result as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is really handy. Thank you, guys. Okay. Now we've got about 5 minutes left. So options are, if you guys have any other questions, whether they're super relevant or just things that you've been wondering of, we can ask them, or I can share with you a couple of things that I thought were handy from Singapore.
I have a question.
Yeah, let's do it.
How do you point someone in the right direction? Someone came to me and it says, like, I don't believe in chronotype. And she was not like a medical provider, but she was in the health space. So I think when she told me that, like, my mind just short circuit and I was like, I didn't know how to respond to that. How do you reply, and how do you point someone who doesn't believe in chronotype that the chronotype is a thing? And I was like brainstorming with ChatGPT, trying to understand like why people would not think that there are chronotypes, but
okay. Oh. As in, like, there's no night owls, there's no early birds, everyone's the same?
Yeah, there is only circadian rhythm and there is no chronotype. It's not like the predisposition to sleep late or early.
Oh gosh, that's interesting. What would be the motivation behind like believing that? I wonder.
You know what? It's like that came to me after that, because like my brain got short circuit. I was like so shocked that I didn't know how to reply. My first instinct was to prove her wrong, but then I was like, I was questioning myself, like, why doesn't she believe in chronotype in the first place? She was like, there is only circadian rhythm and you have to wake up and go to bed at the same time. Light is the only thing that regulates our circadian rhythm.
Do you think it's that she's coming at it from the angle, like, I know you know that they've done that study where they took a whole lot of students camping and they all started shifting earlier because they were getting more, there was no artificial light at night and they were getting sun in the morning, and so they all kind of shifted into the same pattern. So, and just like you can change time zones by light exposure, you can override that, like maybe predisposition. Maybe she was like that angle, but yeah, I agree with you. It's weird that you wouldn't acknowledge that there's some kind of genetic or preference or something going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess the easy answer is, well, the research tells us that there are chronotypes, like it's just a thing. Maybe it's coming from, but the light and dark happen the same time of day for everybody. And if our circadian rhythm is determined by the cycle of light and dark, and that's the thing that determines, everyone's preference or everyone's, body clock, then it just has to be the same. I guess light is one of the biggest things that will influence our circadian rhythm, but it's not the only thing. Like we're talking about, Deb, for your client, like eating can be part of our circadian rhythm as well. And for someone who has an eating preference for later at night, that is reinforcing the circadian rhythm to be a bit later. Like it's another trainer of the circadian rhythm. So yes, light is a really important part, but it's not the only part. And for people who are really late types, perhaps the other, stimulants that they're getting, and not like stimulant medication or drugs. I mean, like we call them Zeitgebers. It's like a fancy word just to say the things that train your body clock. Perhaps the ones for them that are not light are just stronger. The other thing is that most people, and hopefully I'm telling you things you already know, most people have a circadian rhythm of 24 hours and a bit. So not everyone is going to have exactly 24 hours. Some people it's going to be like 23.5, and those are going to be your early birds. It's like no matter the light and dark, their body clock is just slightly shorter. So every day they're functioning at a slightly earlier timing. And it goes the other way, like our delayed sleep phase people, some of those really do have a longer body clock. So 24.5, 25 hours. And so, yes, obviously most people are going to be roughly like a, daytime awake person. There are other things in the system that will determine our chronotype, not just the light.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, and that
Purgings.
the thinking is, isn't it, that if you've got someone that's got a longer, like it takes longer for them to cycle through that 24-hour, cellular biological circadian system, that they're more a tendency for a night owl because it's more likely to delay, whereas someone that's an early bird, it's shorter, so it's more likely to fall back the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you put a person into a cave, it doesn't mean like they will not have a circadian rhythm. So light is just one factor, but we have an internal clock, which is like the purgings, if I remember correctly, that creates the oscillation in our body that dictates the clock.
Yeah. Are you going to see this person again?
I'm not going to open the discussion again.
Well, if it ever comes up again, maybe some of this will help. Yeah.
She was also giving a talk about circadian rhythm, and I couldn't stay in the room.
Oh.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's tricky. That is, because clearly she's aware of a lot of the science.
I know.
But yeah, it's resistant to some of it. I mean, who knows? We learn new things all the time. Maybe one day someone will come out with a research study saying there is no chronotype. It's just people's choices, behaviors. But I don't believe that. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Answering people with very different scientific beliefs is a bit of a minefield, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah. Well, thank you for allowing me to ask this question in the safe group, because
it's a great question.
Yeah. Now probably I will be more prepared for a situation like that, but I hope I will never encounter another person that comes with an argument like that. So
it's a really odd one to have, so I suspect not. But it's a good one. It's getting us thinking about, okay, what actually is behind chronotypes. So thank you for raising it. All right. We are just over time, so I might leave us there. Thank you guys so much for joining. This has been very fun.
Thanks so much.
That's all right. Hope you all have a lovely day/evening, and see you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.